That was my last 10 millimeter. Hi everybody, and welcome to the Renaissance Builder. So a couple episodes ago I showed you how we broke down in the CVS parking lot and how we used a interesting fix to get ourselves home. Well, today we've got the parts, we've got some stuff, and we're going to try fixing this sucker up. It's really not that complicated, but I figure might as well do it so that anybody out there who's wanting to do this themselves or even just wants to work on vehicles themselves can feel free to do so and know that it's really not that hard. So let's get into this. I don't know what I'm going to do for the camera angles yet, but we'll see if we can't figure it out so that you get the best view possible. Let's get started. Okay, so we're kind of going rogue a little bit and doing this by hand, but here you have it. Here's the temporary repair that we used to get ourselves home. Now what we're doing is we're going to replace this hose because this fitting is broke. So I actually have this entire T that we're going to be replacing with this hose, and if you trace this hose down, it goes right here. Oh yeah, focus on my arm there, that's great. So that fitting right there. Now the first thing we have to do, because we filled this system back up with water, is we have to drain that water, because that point's pretty far down there, and if we just go and unhook this thing, that'll make a massive mess. And the last thing you want to be doing is getting antifreeze anywhere ever, like, because that's not a good thing, and it'll piss off the neighbors, and then you'll end up with a bunch of unhappy people, like more so than normal. So what I'm actually going to do, you can actually see a hole to the floor right down there. I'm going to stick the hose down in that hole, and underneath I'm going to put a bucket under that and drain it that way. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Try to make sure you have the smoothest run possible from here, so it's downhill from here the whole way. That way, as you drain it out, it drains everything completely. Now we go up underneath here. Can you see it from here? Nope. Ah, yes. There she is. We're going to untie this. This is going to make a mess. There we go. Right into the bucket. We had to undo the radiator cap so it actually lets some air in to let the water out. But she's draining good there. We're going to let her drain. Oh. No. Still going. Oh, there. No. Yeah, no. We're going to let this drain for a while and come back to it when it's done draining. Okay. So I thought about it, and I figured to be productive, whilst that system is draining, we can go ahead and work on this other pipe here. Because this other pipe we only have to hook up to the fitting, or hook back up to the fitting up here. So my wifey boss explained to me that I never actually explained why it is I had to pinch these lines off. So the reason I had to pinch these lines off is because it's part of the coolant system, and the way, or part of the heating core system, and it's part of the engine coolant system. Now the engine has a water pump, and that's what I was pointing to initially. So that water pump circulates the water through the engine, back through a thermostat into the radiator and back into the engine. But to put heat in your car, we take some of that coolant and we stick it into a coil in the car, which is here. It's called the heater core. But in order to do that, we have to pump it. So we take water from the pump and we put it into the heater core, and then it comes back. Now, because of that, this system is open to the engine coolant, and that's under pressure. And if we just left this open, then it would literally pump all the water from the engine cooling system out. So we had to pinch it off to keep it from emptying the engine water, the engine coolant, all over the ground to get us home. So that's why we had to pinch it off, to make sure all the water didn't get out of the engine. I guess in a nutshell, because, you know, I like to make things complicated like that. So we're going to put this back onto this here fitting. There we go. And click her into her holster. The inlet T already broke on me once before, or I guess it started leaking. So I had to replace that. So that's why this line looks new. So now what we're going to do is replace the other line because that one broke. Now, to get these T's off, they're a little annoying, but it's actually a gasket fitting. Like there's an O-ring in there and then a clip. And you have to, like in a perfect world, you would simply squeeze that and pull it out. Well, I guess that worked for our perfect world on that one. Let's see if our perfect world holds up on the other end. Yep, oh nice. Cool. So yeah, to get these out, what you're supposed to do is squeeze this, and it releases these two tabs inside there, allowing the line to come out. So when we go click it together, it's as easy as popping it in, and then popping this one in, and we're good. Let's just go, we gotta go through when you put this together, make sure there's no crud or too much corrosion on the line, because as I said, it's an O-ring inside there that does the sealing. And oh yeah, there's a little bit on there, so I might take some emery cloth and clean that off. Any dirt that's in there will keep the O-ring from sealing correctly. She's almost drained out and we're almost ready to go. I'm just gonna go get some emery cloth and we'll get back at her. All right, so I got some emery cloth here. Just gonna go through and shine this up. You don't want to get too aggressive. Like I said, I'm just using emery cloth on these. If you use like too rough a sandpaper and you put too big of scratches in there, then you got a whole nother problem. Now the system's done draining out. Here's our new fitting. I think I'll put this part in first. Again, there's O-rings in there, so don't get all too rammy with it. Now that the hose is installed, clip her in. Now this hose is going to have a little bit of extra because I'll be honest with you, thought I ordered the right hose, and Amazon, well, it was confusing, so I didn't get the right hose, but it is the right diameter and it is a coolant hose, so we can make it work. Okay, so it's a little dark, but at least there's an angle. You can see sort of. There's going to be some camera jiggle in here. You know what? I got no way around it. If you guys want to see what I'm doing, then it's just going to get jiggly. So these little clips right there, they're not that complicated. You just reach around up. We're going to adjust this a little bigger. You just reach around and squeeze it all the way, and then you can move it around. Put that out of the way. Now we can pull this off. Now these hoses get sticky, so sometimes it takes a bit of wiggling. All right, here we go. Ta-da! All right, now we do have a little bit of extra juice coming out here, but it's just a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is get a length of how much I want to cut this. So I clip it in there the way it's supposed to be. I take it down here, and I say, well, get the hose stuck. And I say, well, that's a good length that has a nice curve and doesn't kink. So then I just come in here with the tubing cutters, and voila. Now we're going to, this is going to be one difficult video to watch just because of the camera movement. All right, let's see if I can't coerce the tube on there the whole way. All right, there we go. Tube's on. Sorry, just tightening this up. All right, so you can see the tube's on right there, past the edge, and let it rest right there. So now you got the clip right there. And that takes care of it. New line is in, T is in, hose is sealed off, there you go. All right, that's it for the funky camera. All right, now that the hoses are attached and the repair is made, we have to fill her back up. Now we drained about roughly a little bit less than 2 gallons of fluid out, which means we probably drained, we drained more than that at the parking lot because we put more than that in. But we got to put the fluid back in. Now remember, I had to add water to this thing, so that means it's diluted a bit. Now, I don't have a refractometer, but if you want to absolutely confirm that your fluids are safe from freezing, that your antifreeze levels are high enough, you use what's called either a refractometer or it's like a gravity, I don't know, there's a tester you can get. The refractometer is best. It'll tell you exactly what's in there, and you would use that measurement to determine how much fluid you're actually going to add. If you don't have those, don't worry about it. Not that you shouldn't worry about it, but you can always add a little extra or a little less antifreeze isn't going to kill you. I mean, well, unless you're in like negative 50 degrees, then you better be on the money about it. But if you're in that kind of climate, you probably already know that you should be on the money about that. Either way, it's something to keep in mind. In this case, I'd rather lean on the case of more than less, but we don't get down to, like, we don't get in the negatives down here. So it's really not that big of a deal here where I live versus, you know, if you live in Montana or something like that. So a trick I'd like to show you guys, and one thing you don't want to do is be spilling all over the place. Now, if you don't have a funnel, you should definitely use a funnel, but if you don't have a funnel, you can always make one, either out of a bottle, an old bottle, like plastic bottle. You could use glass too, but the cutting process is a bit more, well, it's different. Or like an old oil can or whatever, just make sure it's clean. So all you do is you just cut it in half. And there's your funnel. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to add straight concentrate first. And then we'll top off with the regular water after that. Now, concentrate is designed so that you mix 1 gallon of concentrated antifreeze with 1 gallon of water, and that gives you your 50-50 mix. This is simply a less expensive and, frankly, I think easier way to handle it. So I'm going to use the whole jug, and oh, they got this little special spout here. See if that works. So I'm just going to put the whole jug in there. It's 1 gallon of antifreeze concentrate. Now this stuff you want to be careful with because it is poisonous and it's a regulated fluid. In other words, like authorities and people don't want you spilling it or getting it all over the place. Either way, it's definitely bad for your health. Don't get it on your skin. Don't get it in your eyes. Don't drink it. It's not Kool-Aid. One other thing I'd point out, you noticed I'm using Prestone DexCool. So you can get antifreezes that are, Prestone's pretty good for making antifreezes that are good for anything, but this vehicle has only had GM coolant in it. So you're just better off if you have a vehicle, whether it's a Toyota, a Ford, or a Chevy, you're better off sticking with the formulas that the manufacturers make. They do it on purpose. It helps protect the metals. It does things. Like it's there for a reason. So if you can, stick with the manufacturer's formula. Otherwise, just get the one-size-fits-all stuff and you'll probably be all right. So now that we have that in there, we got to get some water and put the water in. So we used our nice empty jug of concentrated antifreeze to put the water in. And that's a good way to make sure you're always getting 50-50 out of these things, is once you put a gallon of concentrate in, then you put a gallon of water in. The stuff will all mix up inside the engine. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so we're up to the level of our reservoir now. Now we're going to go ahead and fire the engine up and let it burp out any of the air that it needs to burp out and monitor the levels that way. Now you want to let the engine run long enough to open the thermostat, which means it's going to get warmed up, and as soon as the thermostat opens, that's when it's going to start circulating the water and fill in any of the air gaps. When that happens, the reservoir is going to drop lower and you're going to see air come up into the reservoir. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, You were told that you should never have the cap off when the engine is hot. No, that's not it. I was very specific. You should never take the cap off when the engine is hot. If the cap's already off, all it's going to do is fill up and overflow. So let's let her run for a little bit, get warmed up, and we'll top the level off then. So that concludes our repair of this here cooling system. One thing I'd like to mention that's very important: what you do with your leftover coolant. I find it's easiest to put it in a 5-gallon bucket with a lid. That way you can take it to your local mechanic shop or parts distributor, and they can either deal with it for you or direct you to a place that can handle it. Never just pour it in your backyard or down a drain. The stuff is poisonous and it can harm your pets, wild animals, or even your infants and toddlers. So it's not good. Make sure you handle it carefully. That concludes our repair here. Hopefully you guys found this informative, or at least gives you the courage to work on your own vehicle, because as I said, it's not that difficult. Thank you very much, guys, and until next time, have a good night. Oh, and if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so that you're notified for future videos. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Nope. Yeah.